pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. The agenda is adopted as it is written. All right. Well, let me get my paper for call to the public.
If you hit the number.
That's right, I got it right now. During call to the public, members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38431, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for a future agenda item. The board requests that all comments be limited to those minutes to 3 minutes or less, and that the public refrain from the use of speech or language that is offensive or inappropriate pursuant to board policy KFA. Please state your name so that we can follow up if we need to later. And the floor is now open to the public. All right, seeing that there is no comment, we will go on to our superintendent's report.
Well, I'm happy to, President Anderson, members of the governing board, happy to present my superintendent's report. Several things to report on tonight, and several different presenters are going to help me with this presentation. But we're going to start with, first of all, our Teacher of the Month. So congratulations to Teacher of the Month, Courtney Kellner's science teacher at Maricopa High School. His actual picture is on the right. That really is Mr. Kellner's right there. On the left is kind of the representation of Mr. Kellner's, because if you went to his website, his high school district website, his own personal website for his students, a lot of good information on there, and the mad scientist appears on every page. So he's kind of identified with the mad scientist a little bit, but he's also known for a lot more than that, which is why we are recognizing him as the Moses Lake High School Teacher of the Month. Not only is he a science teacher who teaches honors biology, and chem physics, he is also the head boys soccer coach. So he's a very busy professional person. His students call him Mr. K, and he is an innovative teacher. He does a lot of project-based instruction, which challenges his students to hypothesize, solve, and discuss lab experiments while integrating technology and engaging them. And as you know, as we work on Common Core standards, those are the exact kind of skills that we are working on across the district, and Mr. Kellner is making that happen in science classes. In addition, he is the department chair for the science department. He is also a Maricopa High School tech liaison, so he is kind of the tech expert for the school, for staff that needs help with their technology. In addition, he serves on the strategic planning committee currently for the school district, and he is also known for organizing professional development for Maricopa High School staff. Last year, organizing a communication professional development activity for staff. He's seen as a leader among the staff and a positive role model for our students. And then I also happen to know that in his free time, which is not very much, he does things like sponsor soccer clinics, youth soccer clinics, not connected with Maricopa Unified School District, but for soccer programs in the community. And then I also know that he's working on a student trip to Costa Rica, which also is not associated with Maricopa Unified School District, but is going to be a great opportunity for many of our students. So it's really a pleasure to recognize the Teacher of the Month from Maricopa High School, Courtney Kellner's. Yes, I visited Mr. Kellener's classroom, and the last time I was in there was a very active day, a lot of good student learning going on. It was a pleasure to be in there, so congratulations again. Moving on, we want to recognize Maricopa Unified School District Blended Learning 20+1 students tonight. They, as you know, competed in the Future Cities competition on January 26th. Approximately 30 students in grades 6 through 8 from that program, which is located at Maricopa Wells Middle School. I believe there were 13 separate teams in the class. Is that right, Mr. Lang? I think I got my numbers right here. So they prepared 13 different model cities, and 3 of them were on display tonight in the lobby, and they're really well done. And as you know, I was a judge for that local competition, and students just not only did a great job on the models, but the learning that went into it, the presentations, were very well done. The competition was held at ASU Preparatory Academy, and our students received 4 state awards and then numerous individual awards. And so we want to recognize these students tonight. Great effort academically, and I think they represented our school district really well. And you can see from the pictures, if you saw those, that they really dressed up and looked the part, and in fact many of them are dressed up and looking very professional tonight too, which we also appreciate. Also really appreciate the leadership of the 3 teachers in that program. Have really done a super job this year of bringing a brand new program to life. I know we've done this Future Cities competition in the past, but as far as our 20+1 program, they have really done a super job. And Principal Joe Veras, who's the principal at Desert Wind, has kind of been the lead principal with that program. I appreciate Mr. Veras's, or I should say Dr. Veras's efforts. And then Mr. Rick Abel, principal at Maricopa Wells Middle School, also very much involved since the program is going on in his school. So it's been a wonderful team effort this year, and we're very proud of the progress our students are making academically, and particularly in this competition. So I'm just going to call them up and ask them to come up. And then when you come up, if you could just stay on the stage, and then we'll get a picture at the end when everybody's up here. So we'll start with the teachers. Robin Rice for winning the Educational Excellence Award. Teacher Lily Lang for Educational Excellence Award. No, self-visit. Emily Taft for winning the Best Essay Award. Her teammate is Reese Thompson for Best Essay Award. Evan Grace for Award of Distinction and Architectural Excellence Award. Okay, so total of 4 winning the same award. So Ethan Moore, Award of Distinction and Architectural Excellence Award. Emily Moreno for Award of Distinction and Architectural Excellence Award. Joseph Rice, Award of Distinction, Architectural Excellence Award. Ryan Hahn for winning the Walton Sustainable Community Award. Katie Hayes for winning the Walton Sustainable Community Award. Elijah Northern for the Walton Sustainable Community Award. And Jada Stratman for the Walton Sustainable Community Award. very impressive middle school students. So congratulations once again to all of you, and good job. We're looking forward to next year because we know how this goes. You know, you learn something when you compete, and then you get better the next year. So we're looking forward to having you back next year with even more awards to present. Thanks a lot. As you know, we have a budget committee that's been looking at budget recommendations for the upcoming school year, co-chaired by Jim Irving and Rick Nielsen, and I know that Rick is here tonight to give us a little update.
Superintendent Chestnut. We have now met 3 times as a budget committee, and again, the committee, we believe, is a nice representation of community, school employees, and parents. The first 2 meetings, we were trying to sort through the needs of the district in addition to covering the projected $1 million deficit going into next school year. We have also identified some other needs for the district. We've been looking at the need for either partial restoration of the salary schedule. We're trying to fund a reserve fund in case of emergency spending or so forth during the school year, and other things that have come up of that nature. And we reached a target amount of about $2 million that we're trying to find over the course of the next few weeks in the operating budgets that we might be able to. First and foremost, we have to meet the deficit. The second priority is to, visit pay increases for staff. And then third priority that was identified is to fund the operating reserves to carry the district forward. We met last night. We also started discussing areas to cut. And on the table were everything from my own program, CTE, to testing the Galileo system. We looked at our expenses for the online school. We looked at the expenses for all-day kindergarten. We looked at the expenses to maintain the 6 elementary schools, the 2 middle schools. And after 90 minutes of discussion, we were able to reach consensus and support what you will be discussing later this evening, the idea of converting our kindergarten program, the free kindergarten, to a half-day program, and then support the district in providing all-day kinder for tuition or fee-based. We also were in agreement in the idea of closing a middle school over closing an elementary school, and that would then move the 6th grade students back down to the elementary level, creating K-6 schools instead of the K-5 schools. We received feedback through Dr. Chestnut on responses from the public at his 2 budget coffees that helped us make those decisions, and felt that in general so far we do have support in the community for those decisions. We still have a long way to go. We have, by cutting the kindergarten back to half day and then closing the middle school, we have identified approximately $1 million in cuts, and so we feel good that we have at least met the projected deficit going into next year. But if we want to bring back any of these salary issues or other items, we do need to try and cut deeper. And so we will be meeting again. We've got 2 more meetings scheduled, and I'll be back with more information. Thank you. Yes. Yes, I'm sorry.
Superintendent report? Work study, never mind. I'll save that. Thank you.
And Mr. Nielsen is our CTE director and assessment director, and he's also very helpful at the parent coffees and helped facilitate some of the small groups, so I appreciated his involvement in those meetings. So thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Moving on. As he mentioned, I did have 2 parent superintendent coffees on February 6th, and the first one was at 10 a.m. in this room, and the second one was at 7 p.m. At Santa Cruz Elementary. Had light attendance, maybe 10 parents at the morning meeting. There were some staff members in the room, but in the evening we had probably 25 to 30 parents in the room, and a little more interest, probably better time for people that are working. I'd like to think my presentation was the highlight, but I think the real highlight was in the morning, one of the coffee shops provided free coffee and it was very good. But even better, in the evening, Santa Cruz PTO put on a banquet, and it was wonderful. They had sandwiches, they had dessert, they had 3 different beverages, and that was really the hit of the evening right there. But it was a good discussion, as Mr. Nielsen talked about, and I'll come back and revisit that issue in a moment and give you a little more feedback on that. Another big event that same day, on February 6th, was National Signing Day at Maricopa High School, and we were very proud of our student athletes who were signing letters of intent on that day to attend college and participate in intercollegiate athletics. And I do have all the names right here. Andrea Wilson on the left will be attending Bethany College in Lindsborg, Kansas, and she'll be playing softball, or fast pitch as the girls like to call it. Josh Madu, University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota, on a football scholarship. Kentrell Coleman, Glendale Community College in football, and Caleb Buck, University of Mary, Bismarck, North Dakota, same college as Josh. And so it was very exciting, and it was a great event. And the press was there and asking good questions, and it was fun to hear the students talk. And one of the good questions was, can you just reflect on your high school experience? What are you taking away from Maricopa High School as you graduate? And every one of them had just a great answer, and I was very proud of our students. So they're accomplishing things on the athletic field, but as you know, to qualify for those scholarships, you have to also maintain your grade point average and pay attention to your studies. So student athletes doing a good job in both places, and we're proud of them. Big news. Congratulations to the Arizona Interscholastic Activity Association Football Coach of the Year, Corey Nienaber. What's that? Yes, Corey is also our athletic director, as you know, and so he's a busy man. And we're very proud of Corey, and of course, this is typical Corey. I had heard this was a rumor. I heard the rumor, and I meant to ask Corey, and I forgot, and I had to read about it in the paper before I knew that it was official. So I sent him an email this morning and congratulated him, and if you read that story in the Maricopa Monitor, the point he made is that the most important thing to him this year, really, he said he was very humbled and flattered by the award, but just to see his players going on, being able to play at the college level, and bringing all of his players along and seeing that skill development so that they could make the playoffs and those kinds of things. I mean, I think he's sincere when he says that. He's just very student-focused and just a wonderful coach. And I had the opportunity to actually do his evaluation this year because, athletic director can't evaluate himself. So it was fun for me to get involved a little bit with the football program, which I haven't done for about 20-plus years. So I was around a little bit more than I would normally be, and I was very impressed with everything I learned about Corey and the way he works with students and staff, the school, his emphasis on sportsmanship, so greatly deserved, and we're very proud of Corey. As I understand it, there are there's one Coach of the Year from each division, and I think there's 5 or 6 football divisions. In Division III, I think this year there was maybe a 2-way tie, so there were 2 from Division III. But anyway, 4 or 5 football coaches out of the entire state. It's quite an honor, and Coach of the Year is a big deal, so we're proud of Corey. Other big news in athletics, girls basketball team, as Ms. Salai just said, is playing in the state championship playoffs tonight, and they are playing at Notre Dame Prep in Scottsdale, and coached by Jen Miller, and we're very proud of the team. They have a record going into tonight's game of 17-11. Which is a pretty good record. Had a chance to see them a couple weeks ago, and I was very impressed. Other big news, congratulations to Dr. Joe Veras, principal of Desert Wind Middle School, completed his doctorate in education through Grand Canyon University, and we're very proud of Dr. Joe, and that's a big accomplishment, and we had our first principal meeting after he'd earned that doctorate on Tuesday, and we had a little cake and a little celebration, and we're very proud of him. And of course, his dissertation was on the subject of instructional technology and blended learning and how that applies in public schools, and he's been leading the way with our blended learning program, our 20+1 program at Maricopa Wells Middle School, and we really appreciate his efforts. We anticipate more good things in that regard, so it's a pleasure working with Dr. Joe, and now you just can call him Dr. Joe next time you see him. Moving on to more serious topics. More mundane. You have probably read a press release and heard that Arizona Department of Education Classroom Site Fund, or the CSF, as they affectionately call it, made overpayments to some districts around the state. Some underpayments, some overpayments. In our case, it was an overpayment between the year of 2005 and 2010. It was only discovered within the last couple months. And the Classroom Site Fund, or the CSF, is also known as 301 funds, which was created by Proposition 301 back in the year 2000, they tell me. So it's been around for a while. But in this school year, this fund generated approximately $2 million for Maricopa Unified School District, and it can be used in 3 areas. Fund 11 is for teacher salaries. 20% of those dollars go into that fund. The Fund 12 is for performance pay, 40% there, and then Fund 13 for class size reduction, 40% there. So we hire extra teachers, and we provide performance pay, and we are able to improve teacher salaries with those funds. So anyway, it was an overpayment of a total of $91,000 during those years. The repayment will be $7,600 a month over this next fiscal year. Now, we believe that there will be a slight increase in funding for 301 funds from the legislature this year. We think that that increase in funding will offset the payback, and we think that we're going to come through this without really noticing a reduction from last year's levels, and possibly even a slight increase, because of the higher funding that we anticipate coming from the state for 301. So that's the good news. The other good news, it wasn't a huge amount of money. I think some districts, the overpayment was quite large and maybe more impactful. You know, we'd prefer that we didn't have to pay back $91,000, but we think that it will be pretty painless for us this year. And that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Chestnut. The next item is governing board reports. Members, do you have any? I know you've all been busy doing stuff.
I have a report.
Okay.
Or I don't know who's going to go first.
Go for it.
Go for it.
So excited. Okay. I, as you all may know, I sit on the Auction Indian Communities Education Committee, as well as being on the school board, so that affords me the opportunity to be able to attend some of the most awesome parent night, and one was on February 6th. That was for the 8th grade, the middle school kids. We discussed the 8th grade promotion activities and the requirements that are involved with that. We are also looking at, there was also information sent out to the parents about the 7th hour program that's going on, which I think is a really awesome thing for the children who don't finish up their homework the night before. They can go to this 7th hour class with a pass and finish it there. And I don't think it's necessarily a disciplinary action of any kind, but it is a way of helping our kids get their homework in. Maybe they couldn't get it done. Maybe they were at activities late at night, can't come home, can't get it done. So I think that's a really interesting program for the kids. Also attended the high school one that was on February 11th. And we just basically went over Auction Indian Community's goals and objectives for the Auction Indian Community Education Department. I give credit to Miss Vivian Saunders, our education director, for all of the stuff that she does with the kids. And they passed out some student assessment information, and also just information on how, you know, kids, what their next step will be once they graduate from college, what's the plan, what does Arizona expect, that kind of thing. So interesting meeting, and it's great for to have our Maricopa School District personnel there to help answer questions and things like that with our kiddos and the parents there for the Auction Indian community.
I have a couple of updates. On February 6th, I actually attended via a webinar with ASBA. They're starting to do legislative updates. Mm-hmm. So luckily, even though I was in Florida, I was able to log in and participate in that. They're going to be doing periodic updates, letting us know what's happening in the legislative, and then I will be going, attending, they're going to start doing their Arizona Relations Network lobby days down at the Capitol. And so I'm going to be, they're going to start, I've got a couple already scheduled in March. They had one actually today and tomorrow, but that's mostly for the rural and tribal. They do have one next week. I don't know if I'll be able to attend that one, so, but you're going to be going? So I'm going to be going to some of those in March and keeping updated and keep pushing it, so that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Bartle? Well, I do want to report that the strategic plan committee met, and great committee. I know Mr. Bartle serves on that with us, and we just kind of check it out, and Dr. Chestnut is doing a good job in getting that, because that is one of our goals, to get a district strategic plan put in place. So I appreciate what the committee does and the time they put in, and some good information coming out of it. So thank you for that. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to our information items and work study, and that would be Dr. Chestnut.
First up, we have Maricopa High School, and Principal June Salaya will be talking about the math improvement plan. As you know, we have a district improvement plan. We call it the ELITE plan sometimes. It provides direction for reading and math initiatives district-wide, and then each school is expected to write a school improvement plan to follow up in the area of math and reading language arts. And so Principal June Salai is ready to take it over from here, so thank you. Clicker is right here.
Good evening, President Anderson, board members, and Superintendent Chestnut. I'm up here a little bit humble because of all of the presentations that were in front of me. The middle school students that did such a wonderful job, I look forward to having them at the high school. I don't often get to sit back and reflect on some of the things that are happening on a daily basis. You know, I'm in data world sometimes. So I appreciate all of those presentations and recognitions from the high school. But tonight I want to talk to you about Maricopa High School and our focus on math and how we are making our mark in math this year. I want you to meet the math magicians, as I call them, because I am very fortunate to have a wonderful team of people that are highly focused on this task. And it is an arduous task. We are trying very, very hard to exceed even the state standards in math. I'm going to start by introducing you to the team. My first person is the Data and Assessment Specialist, which is Ms. First Farabee. She's my person that just gives us all of this information, and she's my clicker for this evening too, because I never seem to click right. She gives us and provides for the staff, myself, my administrative team, the Ames data, pre and post test benchmark data, all kinds of data in every way that you can imagine. She disaggregates it, she breaks it down upon request. We are currently looking at things in so many different ways and asking the staff as well to continue to inform us in the best way to give them that information so that they can remediate instruction. She has helped us identify the students that are most in need in the bottom 25% so that we can address their needs. And she's also identifying the students who still need to be successful in Ames math and who are falling far below. So all of that information, all of that data, which for the last 5 years we've been trying to get that central, just compile data. It's just wonderful to have that person right at your fingertips, and it makes all the difference in the world. Next, I am going to introduce you to Miss Rachel Tucker, who is our academic coach.
Thank you. I am Rachel Tucker. I'm the high school academic coach. I am responsible for running weekly meetings with new teachers. I mentor them and I communicate district initiatives during that time. It's also an opportunity for them to get support and voice their opinions and their needs for their classrooms. I also participate and help facilitate math meetings on a bi-weekly basis. During that time, we talk about math talks, weekly problem solving, differentiated instruction. We've started collaborative learning in the high school math classroom. I also go through and model lessons for new teachers that need additional support and instructional strategies. With the veteran teachers who are just looking to change things up a little bit, I co-teach with them. I work very closely with First Farabee for data. We meet with departments and we discuss and we analyze the data in order to better direct our instruction in the classroom. I am going to introduce you to Miss Renita Myers, our assistant principal. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Renita Myers, and I'm the assistant principal for curriculum and instruction at Maricopa High School. And I work very closely with Mrs. Salaya, Mrs. Tucker, and Mrs. Farabee. to do several things, one of which has been to develop an AIMS action plan. The action plan consists of several parts. Number one is our RTI, Response to Intervention Pullout sessions, in which we have identified the bottom 25% of our sophomores based on Stanford 10 scores, as well as our seniors who are still AIMS deficient. And they have their RTI pullout session, which I will go into a little bit further in just a moment. We also discuss tutoring. We have implemented tutoring programs at the high school, as well as the discussion and implementation of strategies that we can use to provide the best testing environment possible for AIMS Day. As far as the RTI math program, we currently have an RTI instructor, and she is doing small group pullouts with the bottom 25 and the seniors that are AIMS deficient. And in those small groups, they're focusing mainly on the strands, the deficiencies that all of those students have, and it's more of a one-on-one where the students have the ability to ask specific questions and the teacher can focus directly on their needs. We have worked together to develop tutoring programs. Our tutoring programs have been peer tutoring, which takes place in the library. We have a group of students who have exceeded on AIMS that have volunteered as peer tutors for some of our students that we have identified. We also have AIMS tutoring by our teachers before school and after school. We work together to review our school improvement plan, and if any of you go into Mrs. Salaya's office, you will see the school improvement plan on her wall. And it's a working document. We are constantly revisiting it, talking about it, adding strategies to it, and looking at what it is that we're doing, what documentation we are going to upload into Elite, and it's a continual conversation that we have when we meet weekly. As far as the SMART goals, our SMART goals have been established school-wide. So not only has our school developed SMART goals in relationship to math, but our teachers have as well. We have worked with our teachers to develop these goals for each class where they have been all given their data. They've analyzed their data, identified by each class what strands they need to work on and look at specifically. I'm now going to introduce our Math Department Chair, Jerry Early.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Early. I'm the Math Department Chair. I just want to say I've been in the district for 18 years, and I'm really excited this year to be working with such a positive and motivated group of math teachers. They're all highly qualified. We do have one long-term sub in the classroom, and she is also highly qualified with math. So that's a great improvement this year. We've had a lot of years where we've had substitutes in classrooms. We are a solutions-oriented team. We've been working with the middle school on vertical alignment, and we're also working to make sure that we have common assessments in all of our math classes. We're also really excited about the support system this year. We have Rachel as our academic coach, and like she said, she has been in the classrooms. She's a great support for all the new teachers. She's a mentor to them, and she's also a wonderful support to all the veteran teachers. She gets us the resources we need, and she's really helped out in the math department. We also have the RTI teacher, which we really like having this year. It's nice to be able to send those bottom 25% students so they can get some individualized help and get the tutoring they need to hopefully bring up their AIM scores and their benchmark scores. And then First, as the data specialist, has been a great help to the department. She gets us our scores back. We're able to look at the data. We're able to see where our kids are, what areas we need to focus on, and just keeps us informed on what's going on. And I just want to turn it back over to June now, and she can discuss with you what we need to do to retain these teachers.
Well, that's open for discussion, I think, with the board, right? But, you know, the challenges moving forward and forward progress are certainly in personnel. We do have substitutes in classes. Hiring math teachers is very difficult in the education field right now, so that's been a challenge. There's a limited number, so we have a lot of tutoring opportunities that are paid positions, that is in AIMS tutoring, and it's hard, excuse me, to get enough teachers to be available to do that, because if you're a teacher and you're involved in an extra, curricular activity, there's just not a lot of time. So getting getting highly qualified teachers after they've worked a full day, they're coaching a sport, and getting them out there to be able to tutor more can be a problem. Technology, utilizing and having enough technology so those resources are available to kids to support their instruction. We are limited on that. Time to collaborate at the high school. As you know, we only have 1 day a month set aside with a half day for kids, and that's not enough time for us. You know, as you can see, there's a lot of support system here, but within that support system, there's a lot of conversation and collaboration that has to happen to keep moving things forward, so we are limited on time. Our class sizes are larger this year because we did not, we lost some positions this year, so our fundamentals class, which is you know, a class for the kids that are still struggling with some fundamentals of math, those are very large, about 30 to 35. That really changes the dynamics of what you can do to help kids when the classes are that large, especially for those that are struggling. There's a high mobility rate, as you know, within the community, and it is so in my school, not just with the families that move in and out, but also with the retention of teachers. They are moving in and out of the district. The mobility rate, interestingly enough, affects transcripts for kids. We have kids that come in that have taken courses and they have no transcripts for those courses, and that is because within the United States, school districts have shut down, and we can't get records no matter what we do. The records, the schools have shut down, it's in a box somewhere, and trying to retrieve that is hard. So in some cases, and I think in some cases it can be a good thing, the kids might be retaking a class that they've already taken, and so it kind of slows things down. The parent involvement is a challenge too, because the parents are working. There's 2 parents that are working, 1 parent working, kids are watching kids and siblings, and so it is difficult to have them support our students, not just in terms of showing up at the school, because at the high school level that's kind of not what they do. They do that at the elementary level, but things like having the internet available at home for their kids is a struggle right now. That's usually the first thing, you know, that they're letting go of in this economy for our kids, and I've talked to many parents where that's been an issue. And then also the transportation after school. So if the kids are staying after school to tutor, we have to find them a way home. We can try to get them on a bus, but it becomes a task and a problem because they're generally not there until 5:30. You know, school for us gets out at 2:15, so to have kids wait there, you know, it's difficult. So those are some of our challenges. I think you can see from the presentation the resources and energy that we're putting into the math scores and our kids and the student achievement and the laser-like focus on this has been incredible this year. And I'm happy to say that when I have teachers, department chairs, the support system, that all the common language and the common vocabulary is benchmark scores and data. I've waited 5 years for that to happen, where that's become, you know, words that we're using all the time and information that we're looking at all the time. So that's leaps and bounds from where we were. Very proud and very thankful for the team I have. So thank you very much for hearing us, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions, board? No. I have a couple questions. You referred to ELITE. What is ELITE, and does the high school use Galileo for?
Yes,
so that
ELITE is Arizona Arizona Legal Education Accountability Tracker.
Arizona LEA tracker.
Oh, is LEA legal?
LEA is a district.
LEA is a district. So that is the school improvement plan. So the state says that every school district and every school has an improvement plan. So ELITE is that improvement plan, and that's what we use to prove to the state and put in all the documentation that we need to show them.
So that's the state's data tracker?
Correct.
Okay. And the high school does use Galileo?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what you're using to gather all your data from?
Yes.
Okay. And is this this is the first year you've had an academic coach?
Yes.
Okay. So it seems to be helping?
Huge difference.
Okay. And then, do we have all of our math teachers hired? Because I know
All
we
but
started the school year.
We did.
Okay.
We did not, no. The answer to that is no.
Okay.
And we did have some that, you know, that came in at the beginning of the year and then they left at the semester. So it was sort of this in and out window. So the students and the transitions have been a lot for them.
So are we working on that now for next year?
We are, but we have a substitute in there that's working out really, really well as a highly qualified person. What I didn't want to do is put this all together and then have somebody come in and out again. So we're doing fine right now, and next year we'll be looking again for math teachers, but hopefully not only one. I'm hoping.
That's my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Swett, what impact have you seen on test scores?
Our benchmark scores, our scores from the pre-test to now has been up 3% in that short amount of time. So I'm hoping to see that grow. You know, the math department spent a lot of time today looking and analyzing all their data. When we say that, it sounds very global, but what it does is it breaks down, in the benchmark scores, it breaks down every single strand and tells them what they need to focus on. So we did two things. We look at the Ames blueprint and say, what is on this? What are you teaching in the classroom? What are the benchmark scores showing you? So where does your focus need to be? As opposed to kind of being, you know, in all over in chapter 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't be dependent upon that anymore. You have to look exactly and target what your instruction is going to be.
I know Mrs. Early has been working on this for a long time, so I know I can see the excitement and the wheels turning, so thank you for all of your time and dedication.
Yeah, it's the teachers, and I thank all this team. It's been wonderful, and thank you for your support.
Thank you. Dr. Chestnut, we're still in the same information. I'm just.
We are ready to move on. We've been discussing our district improvement plan, as you know. Dr. Conley's been kind of giving us a bite-sized piece each meeting, and I think she's ready to go on to the next portion.
I am. Good evening, Governing Board, President Anderson, Vice President Coutre, Superintendent Chestnut. Our next goal within our ELITE, our Arizona LEA, Local Education Agency Tracker, and all that is a big name for it's a way for the state to monitor that our federal and state funds are completely aligned with our district and school improvement plans. So it's a really nice electronic system that is a cross-check of funding, alignment of spending, and alignment of research-based programs. I'm actually starting to like it, as crazy as that sounds. Our next goal is Goal 3, and proficiency for English language learners. This is specified by the state. Again, some of these goals are very concrete of what we have to provide. It's built around our promising practices and our focus of strong curriculum alignment, effective instructional practices, our aligned assessments, which you have just heard about in a way that they're aligned with math, and a system for professional practice to respond to all of our students' needs. Goal 3. We are focused on implementing Common Core standards, whatever level that they are coming in at. We are focused on having a challenging, rigorous, and engaged curriculum for all of our students to learn. High quality language education program. We also have a tiered approach to our English language learners. We have varied abilities. We have some students coming in, specifically I'll use the high school, that are partially proficient in English, and we have some that are completely monolingual in another language. So we have to do basically double the intervention at that level because the content is that much more rigorous and that much more detailed, and they're learning a language. So we have to have a very structured and tiered approach for language. We have a targeted ELL instruction specifically for MHS. We have classes. We have trained instructors that have specific strategies to implement for our English language learners. High quality professional development. Not only do they engage in our district professional development, but also some very specified professional development according to that field. We have monitoring. Not only do we have monitoring from the state every year and then a major audit every 4th year, but we have an ELL specialist coach that monitors all the paperwork. And this is a a major piece not only within ELL, but with our special education monitoring, our Title I monitoring. We have to have certain forms in certain places for all of our students. And of course, family involvement is critical, building those partnerships with our parents for increasing our student success. Goal 3. Questions?
Dr. Connolly, I have a question real quick. I don't need an answer tonight, but I understand what's being said and that we have to set these goals. But can we find out, if we were going to walk into a classroom, what would it look like if these were implemented into a classroom? So that, I mean, it looks really great on paper, but what does it, you know, for someone that's just going to walk into the classroom, what does it look like? Or maybe what does it sound like, so that so that anybody walking in can go, oh, you know what, we're meeting our goals.
And may I clarify?
Absolutely.
Are you asking specifically for this goal or for all of our goals?
All of the goals.
Intel.
So I'm just saying, I know it's like for the next one, when you do the next goal, for me, I'm such a visual, tactical learner that if I can, just a quick example, here's what it might look like if you walked into a classroom.
And absolutely, and
Okay.
just for your information and the entire board and of course our community members, with each and every goal
Right.
that we have described, we have specific action steps, and these are what we call SMART goals, of we are going to have this percentage of passing by this date for this number of students. So they are very specific. And then below those strategies, excuse me, I should have said strategies. We have strategies below each goal, and then we have action steps under each strategy. That with just that, it's very specific
Okay.
at the district level
Right.
of what that looks like, and then we even have tasks associated with that.
Okay.
And I was asked this as well as at the strategic planning committee of, can we see this? Absolutely, it's a public document. It's about anywhere from 67 to 70 pages, depending on what format you use, but it is very detailed and timeline with accountabilities and monitoring.
Okay. So just a short, quick, I mean, I know we could spend all night just talking about one goal.
Right.
But just, you know,
I
hey,
will
here's
be
what
happy.
it would look like. And that's just, and I don't know if anybody else, but maybe I can just meet you on my own. So it doesn't
Beautiful.
need to be. but I'm
Goal
just
4
saying.
is high school graduation, so that'll be a perfect goal for me to put the little piece of evidence of what this looks like in a K-5 school,
Okay.
a 6-8, and a 9-12. Got it?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Chestnut, you're up again. Budget issues. This is our favorite topic, by the way.
Well, it is that time of year. We have to start working on the 2013-2014 budget. We have to adopt that by first meeting in July, so a lot of work goes into that, as you know. So it's kind of been a topic the last couple of meetings and will continue to be. Would like to talk a little bit about some possibilities tonight and give you an overview. Hopefully this information looks familiar. I sent out an email to governing board last week and the staff also to try and just give a snapshot of where we're at, what are the issues, what are the numbers involved. Trying to be very transparent in this process with staff and the community. And it's never any fun to cut budgets. So we want to get lots of good ideas and have opportunities for people to give input so that we can consider ideas, even out of the box kind of ideas. So this is our basic problem. You can see it. In 2012-13, this school year, we will receive state and federal funding in the total of about $31 million. We are transferring in from our reserve funds $2 million this year approximately, and we will take in total amount of revenue of about $33 million, and that's exactly what we will spend on our program this year, our K-12 program. Just projecting ahead for next year, here's what it looks like. We think that we will receive about the same amount of funding from state and federal funds. I wish that there was a big increase coming, but that doesn't seem to be what is going to happen. We can no longer afford to transfer $2 million a year into our operating budget. Our reserves will be completely gone in no time. So we we are anticipating we can transfer in a fiscally responsible manner about $1 million, which would give us a total of about $32 million in revenue for this upcoming budget. That to fund our current programs, so that's $1 million less than we need. So that's our problem, and that's why, simple math, why we have $1 million deficit that we have to address as we plan for next year's budget. There is a wild card in the whole thing, and that is legislative funding. There's a lot of proposals in the legislature right now. I'm sure you've been following that, and it is possible we're going to get an increase. They aren't talking about decreasing us. It could stay stable. One thing that made the task more difficult for K-12 education is that the 1-cent sales tax initiative did not pass on the ballot, so those funds are gone. And so that does make it more difficult for us to have the possibility of an increase. Also, some of the things that the legislature is talking about are earmarked. It could be an increase in funding, but it could be earmarked for a specific purpose, whether that's for school safety or whether that's for professional development for Common Core state standards, training, those kinds of things. That would be appreciated assistance from the state, and it might look like it's more on paper, but it's earmarked. So that's kind of the wild card, and legislature typically finishes their work in May. Which is pretty late in our budget process. So we have to go forward really with almost not necessarily a worst case scenario, but a conservative scenario. And then if we get additional funding from the legislature, in June, as we find out about that, that's a bit of a windfall, and it'd be nice to be able to, plan accordingly for a windfall. This slide you've seen many times, and there's a lot of numbers on this slide, which I apologize for, but it does show what has happened really over the last 5 years, beginning back in 2008-2009 school year. The next number up there in the upper left-hand corner is $560,000. That was when the state of Arizona began cutting K-12 education in the state. And our allocation of state funding was reduced by that amount in that year. That was the last year of our big enrollment increase. We had 13% increase in students. We had 6,388 students that year. We had an M&O budget of $35.2 million and basic state funding, not counting all the extra stuff that the state does provide some extra funding in a variety of earmarked funds. But basic state funding for basic education was $4,733 per student. And then you can kind of see what's happened over the last 5 years. In 2009-10, we were funded at $2,347,000 less than the base rate, or where we would have been if 2008-09 had been fully funded. And we all know why it happened. I mean, it was a very good reason. I mean, the state economy was in bad shape, as was almost every state economy in the nation. And so K-12 funding was cut nationwide in almost every state. There were 1 or 2 states that it didn't impact. But nevertheless, we have seen a decrease in state funding over the last several years, especially in comparison to the baseline year of 2008 and 2009. Our enrollment increase really stopped. We had a 1% increase in 2009-10, and then we started decreasing slightly in the next 2 years. This year we are stable in students, no longer decreasing. But that's the basic issue, is that we have, that's the biggest loss in funding to our district, and the reason why we've had to continue to cut budgets over the last several years. Okay, as you know, I just want to remind you, we do have a process in place, and Rick Nielsen talked about that. The Budget Committee, they had their first meeting on January 15th, and they will be making recommendations to me and the Cabinet. We will work over those recommendations and then bring that information to you. We'll tell you all the stuff that was recommended by the committee, as well as any additional information. So that is coming, and I think it's a good process. It's always good to have a lot of different sets of eyes looking at this data, and as Rick said, we have a good combination of people on that committee, and we've had some really good discussions, so that's part of it. Superintendent coffees will continue. I had one on February 6th. I have one scheduled for each month at 10 in the morning, 7 p.m. at a different school. It's a way to really get out there and talk to parents and discuss these issues. And at our last meeting, the topics were the possibility of eliminating all-day kindergarten and retaining, or I should say, making it a half-day program with tuition for the other half a day. The other topic that we talked about was the possibility of moving grade 6 to the elementary schools, or retaining them rather, in the elementary schools. We talked about that in the context of closing a school, so it was a good discussion, and had a lot of good feedback. Then you can see that by about March 13th, the Budget Committee recommendations will go online, and we will ask for feedback from staff and community, so anybody can look at that. So as a result of this process, you should have a lot of good ideas to look at, things to reflect on as we go through this process, and then we'll give final adoption at our meeting on July 10th. There's really about 4 main options to meet our $1 million deficit. Number one, we could reduce staff and just do it that way only. If we cut about 14 teachers, 6 classified staff, and 2 administrators, that would be pretty close to $1 million. That would save us $992,000. The problem with that is that we already have large class size in many places around the district. Not every school and not every subject, but we have some very large class sizes out there. And this would make it worse, K-12. But you could do it that way. I do not recommend that option, and in fact, it is such a difficult option to consider. We really have spent very little time working on that, talking about it, presenting it, but nonetheless, it is an option. 85% of our budget is tied up with salary and benefits, and so, you have to consider staff cuts if you're going to talk about big money cuts or filling big deficits of $1 million. Another option, number 2, would be to change kindergarten from all day to half. That would save us $480,000. The state no longer funds all-day kindergarten. They pay for half-day kindergarten. If we eliminated all-day kindergarten, we would reduce 10 teaching positions. The average salary and benefit package for our teachers is $48,000, so there's the savings, 10 times $48,000. That's an option. And as I mentioned, in talking to the parents, we talked about that in conjunction with tuition-based half-day programs. Number 3, we could close a middle school. If we did that, it would require keeping grade 6 in the elementary schools to make that happen, because we would end up with about 850 middle school students in grades 7 and 8, and we couldn't retain 6th and just get them all jammed into one middle school. That would save $542,000 if we closed the middle school. Roughly the same savings for both schools. It might, vary a few dollars each way, but roughly $540,000 if we closed the middle school. Number 4, we could close an elementary school. Would save about half that amount of money, $270,000. And obviously, you could do some combination of 1 through 4 to get your total of $1 million. My recommendation, based on the evidence that we've gathered, the information we've gathered, talking to parents and staff, would be items 2 and 3. That's why they have a little asterisk by them. That would get us to $1 million, and I think that these are very defensible program changes. Not that I want to do any of these things. I'd prefer not to do either one, but knowing that we have a $1 million deficit, we have to take some action, and we have to fill that deficit. So that's the overview. Here's some detail. As I mentioned, if we do a possible reduction to half-day kindergarten, we currently have 20 teachers. The average salary and benefit package is $48,000. We're paying $968,000 for our kindergarten teaching staff. They're worth every penny of it. But the state only pays half that bill. So, as I mentioned before, if we reduce to half-day kindergarten, we could reduce 10 teaching positions and save $480,000. One thing I want to make very clear, and I put this in my email to all staff, is that my hope is that even if we did this, we would have a teaching position for people that wanted to remain in the district, assuming their certificate matched up. It might not be their first choice for a teaching assignment, but we have attrition in our district. We had over 25%, I think it was a 28% attrition rate this year compared to last year of teachers leaving our district and having to be filled with new teaching positions. 70 teachers were hired this school year. I would like to think that's going to go to 0 this coming school year, but it's not. I think that's a long-term goal. We need to work on retaining teachers because that stability helps our students and helps our district. But I do think we'll have attrition. We'll have turnover. And that's the reason, I think, even though we may be cutting some kindergarten positions, if we do this, there would be an elementary position for that teacher to go, assuming that certificate matched up. And there is some flexibility in certificates. And it may take a year for that teacher to become highly qualified. But you can be state certified to teach, even though you're not highly qualified, and then we can work with that teacher on a plan to become highly qualified. Right? That's something that we need to consider and look at, and I think that's an important thing to say up front. The preliminary estimated tuition cost for half-day K is this. We know that our direct cost for half a teacher is $24,000. We do have indirect costs that support our classrooms: insurance, utilities, custodial, maintenance, etc. So our total cost for a half-time teaching position, divided across the district, we're spending about $28,560 to support a half-time teacher. You figure that out on a cost per day, 180 school days, that's $158.67 per day for a half-time teacher. If you figure that out for a class of 25 kindergarten students, that'd be $6.35 per student per day. Or if you divided or expanded that over a school year, $1,143 per student to support that half-time teacher. So you divide that by 9 months, the $1,143, and so we could provide a half-time certified teacher for a total of $130 a month for 9 months, 9-month payment over the course of the school year. It's actually $127. I rounded it up because I know there's going to be somebody out there with a calculator. I rounded it up to 130. Round numbers are easier to work with. Yes, you can.
So clarification, this $130 per month number is assuming that we have exactly 25 kids in each class.
Yes.
So when we're creating the pro forma of what we're charging, I think we need to take in consideration that it's unlikely that we have exactly 25 kids. We have to hire a teacher with, in effect, 1 kid. So we need to be cognizant of that, I think, when we're making those decisions.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to have to work on that. I agree. And I'll come back and talk about tuition in just a moment. But another important fact that I wanted to point out here is Krista Roden, our curriculum director, did some research on this and got a definitive answer from Department of Education this week, and that is that Move On When Reading funds can be used to pay the tuition costs for our lowest 25% of our kindergarten readers. And I think that's really wonderful news because obviously those are the kids that need that full-day program the most. We could provide them a free program. The other advantage that we have with providing this tuition-based program for the second half of the day for the students is that we still are going to be including transportation, and we're still including certified teachers. So I think it's a bargain compared to daycare cost. When we first put out our kindergarten roundup information, we tried to make parents aware of this, and we tried to be cautious in our projection because we really hadn't crunched the numbers sufficiently to know where we could end up. On that kindergarten roundup information, we said monthly tuition could be as high as $225, I think was the number we put in there. So when I've been talking to parents at parent coffees this week and they've seen that it's $130, they've been relieved and pleased by that number. Little comparison, and Aaron Rausch and his staff did a little research to look at other schools, what they're charging. You can see the charges range from about $120 a month to $250 a month. Interesting, at J.O. Combs and Jack Harmon Elementary, that is for parapros. It's not a certified teacher in the additional half day. They're certified teacher in the regular half-day program, but not in the other half-day. But as I mentioned, that's an advantage I think that we would have for our students and parents to be able to offer certified teachers. So I think we're in the ballpark with some of the neighboring schools. There are issues, of course. There's a lot of issues, and this is kind of scratching the surface on issues. The feedback from parents was mostly negative, as you can imagine, because most parents don't want to see free all-day kindergarten end. They're pretty honest about that. Can't hardly blame them for that. Impact on kindergarten enrollment. This is, it's unknown exactly what effect this would have on our kindergarten enrollment. But in talking to Casa Grande Elementary School District, superintendent over there, Frank Davidson, they ended all-day kindergarten 3 years ago or so when the state quit funding it. They went to half-day. They offered a tuition-based half-day program. They have approximately 100 students in that program, in other words, going all day, and they see that number growing each year. But in the first year that they went to a half-day program, they had no impact on their enrollment. I'm not sure if that's going to translate here, but that was a neighboring district, and that was their experience. Impact on student achievement in Casa Grande Elementary School District, there was a slight dip. They were at 92% reading at grade level when they had their all-day kindergarten as measured by Dibble's test. When they went to half-day, it dipped and went to 75% reading level, reading at grade level. It was a different test, different Dibble's test. We all switched to a different Dibble's test during that time frame, so that could explain some of the discrepancy. But reading scores probably went down a little bit in Casa Grande when they did this. And that's to be expected. We know that early childhood programs really help kids. I mean, that's why President Obama in his State of the Union address last night suggested 2 years of universal preschool, because we know that kindergarten programs do help kids learn, accelerate their learning. But we also know that kids are resilient and can make it up. And we think that, as I mentioned before, that the ability to take our lowest readers and offer them a free all-day program could help alleviate that issue as well. Not completely, but it could help. And then I mentioned the financial impact also would be a savings of $480,000. Please interrupt me. I'm rolling here, so I'm happy to take questions as I go.
Quick question, not a question or comment, but 2 years ago, Casa Grande actually, and I'm sure Superintendent Davison probably shared this with you, they also had said that they actually made enough money on their tuition-based kindergarten that paid for the all-day teachers. Is that still?
Well, superintendents are a little cagey when it comes to those kinds of questions, but McCartney Ranch, I know, is in Casa Grande Elementary School District, $210. Yes, if we were charging, $80 a month more than we projected, we'd be making $80 a month per kid. So yes, there's a little profit there. But we felt like we needed to bring forward a proposal to the governing board that covers our costs, both direct and indirect. I think that's prudent. That's the way we brought forward our facility fee expenses, and Aaron Roush crunched the numbers on this, and we feel that we have a similar kind of proposal in that regard.
No, I appreciate that.
Other thing talked about with the parent coffees was the possible closure of one school, knowing that this is a governing board decision, but still something that needs to be discussed because it's a possibility of saving a large sum of money. As I mentioned before, if we close an elementary school, the total savings would be $270,000. We think we'd save about $86,000 in energy costs, and that is discounted about 35% because we know that those students are going to go somewhere else, and so utility bills in the schools they're going to are going to be slightly higher, and we figure we'd factor in about a 35% reduction in the savings to account for that. So we think that's a conservative number on energy savings. We think if we close an elementary school, we can get by with about 5 to 5.5 less classified staff. And that would be a savings of somewhere around $184,000. We need less secretarial help, less custodial help, and that would be a reduction in positions.
Concept of the energies being a variable cost versus a fixed cost?
Well, I'm not an expert on energy, but I assume it's variable just because we can't predict the weather perfectly, and so we're just estimating based on historical trends. And yeah, it might not be that much if we had a really hot summer or a really cold winter.
I guess my question is, if we have 500 kids in a school and then we now have 550 kids in a school, it seems that 35% fudge factor is pretty aggressive, given that you're still going to have to air condition the school or heat the school, as the case may be, and maybe it's impacted with 10% more bodies in it. But I'm just wondering if are there other large uses of energy that I'm not thinking of as it relates to that.
I do think those are the main uses of energy, and Aaron Roush done a nice spreadsheet on this. Be glad to share that with you. I think we have the detail, at least show you our rationale, and I think it'd be a good way for you to see if you, agree to the assumptions, because we want to get that number right. Yeah. That's what I'd recommend. We'll be glad to bring that back and provide that. As I understand it, we tried to be conservative in that, but we certainly want to look at that. Because, right, even though the building is empty, you're going to have to spend some money on energy costs to maintain the building.
And maybe that's what I'm missing, is you still have to, it's the building without the kids that we're still having to spend some money on energy, right?
Yes. And that was factored into the calculation as far as I know. But we can bring in the spreadsheet so you can see exactly what the assumptions were.
Cool, thanks.
Likewise, the middle school, it's mainly just because the middle schools are much larger. But as I mentioned, if we did close the middle school, we would have to move grade 6, or at least retain them in their current elementary schools. So same kind of calculation. We have energy savings of $97,000. We can get by with fewer teachers if we combine into one middle school and we have grade 7 and 8 there. And the main reason is because of electives. We projected this out, met with Mr. Abel, Mr. Veras, Mr. Beckett this week, double check our assumptions. We would need fewer elective teachers. Probably need one less PE teacher, probably one less music teacher, one less foreign language teacher, probably. And we think that we would be able to maximize class size better while still maintaining the same class size averages that we currently have. We can't do everything this year, and particularly at Desert Wind, class sizes are large this year. This actually will help equalize a little bit. If you're coming from Desert Wind, you're going to think class sizes are a little bit smaller. If you're coming from Maricopa Wells, you're going to think class sizes are a little bit larger, but they're going to be the same average that we currently have. I wish I had a proposal here that could help us make across-the-board progress on class size reduction, but we just can't afford to do everything, in my judgment. Anyway, we can go with 4 less classified staff, 1 less administrator, total savings of $542,000 if we close a middle school. But I put a little note there on the bottom. We do need direction from the governing board. The Arizona Revised Statute is pretty clear on the process that we need to go through if we're going to consider closing a school. It takes 2 meetings, 2 consecutive governing board meetings. You could take more, of course, but a minimum of 2 to discuss this. We notify parents. We take input from parents as we make the decision. I would appreciate tonight having direction from the board to administration to move forward and bring a recommendation to the next meeting, or there could be the meeting after that. It's up to you. If we, let's just say, for example, your direction was to bring a recommendation to the next meeting, I don't think that would start the clock. That would be the recommendation meeting, and then if you said move forward after that, I think it would take a minimum of 2 more meetings to make this decision. So the quickest we could turn this around, in my judgment, would be to make a final decision by the end of March on this topic. If you gave us direction tonight to move forward and bring a recommendation to you.
And governing board, is there, I mean, I for one would like to see more information on the breakdown, transportation, number of students, more details, not only just, maybe there's other options. So if the board doesn't have any other questions, or would you like us to direct staff to make a?
I have one question. If you're looking for the recommendation from the board, when we recommend that, if we choose to recommend to close a school, do we have to at that time choose the school, or what is the process? I mean, how is the school that's going to be closed, how is that determined?
That would be the process that the board would go through, yes, and they would have to name the school. That would be
At
part of the
that same
process.
time?
Yes, beginning with meeting number 2, you would have to say the school that you were considering closing.
After you've presented us with all the information on each school and what the impact would be on the community and the students and transportation
Yes.
and budget, okay. So if I have the blessing of the board, I would like to definitely have the staff and Dr. Chestnut provide that information so that we can move forward with making some decision sooner rather than later.
Okay, we're happy to do that. Bring that back to the next meeting.
And for clarification, to make sure they're going on the right path, and that's the closing of a middle school, not an elementary school.
Any school, it's just all options, whether it's elementary or middle school. It's just what are the recommendations, what are the options?
Okay, should we, Dr. Chestnut, would you like us to hash that in more detail tonight if possible to give you a little bit more clear direction, or is it, what's the process like on your end? Because I don't want you to, if we can narrow that down a search for you, that would probably help. But
I appreciate that comment. As I said earlier, my recommendation was that we need to move forward and eliminate all-day kindergarten, and we need to close middle school. Let me just tell you the reason why I make that recommendation to you, preliminarily, obviously, at this point in time. Maybe this will guide your thinking on what you want us to pursue for the next meeting. We have some issues that we need to address that I think we can address best by closing a middle school. And the issue is, there's a couple different parts to it. One is that we lose a large number of sixth grade students in particular to Kyrene Elementary School District. I do believe that, and I'm going to get to this in a moment, but just to give you a preview, in talking to parents, they're telling me, they're saying, if we keep sixth grade in the elementary schools, we will see a very large number of sixth grade students remain in the school district next year who otherwise would have gone to Kyrene or possibly one of the charters or some other place. Because our elementary schools are doing pretty well. We're not perfect, we're trying to improve, but there's a good level of satisfaction with parents in our elementary schools. That's one advantage and the possibility of moving grade 6 to the elementaries. The other issue is that we have poor letter grades at both of our middle schools. As you know, both of our middle schools received a D this year based on Ames test data. First year, they were C last year. They almost made C grade this year, but student achievement this particular last spring was not going in the right direction. We think that we can better focus our efforts on middle school improvement in grades 7 and 8 if we have those students in one school. We think we can make good progress. I can't guarantee it, but I do believe that it is possible to have our better focus on improving. Another issue is that we will have to reopen a school in the future. I assume as the economy continues to improve and grow, I think the city will grow. Student enrollment will grow. It will be a few years probably, but at some point we'll have enough student population, we will need to reopen that middle school. And then I think when we do that, we can do it in a very intentional and structured way with very specific academic programs that are going to attract and retain students in the district. And so we can do a better job of making Maricopa schools the schools of choice for our students. So I want to make really clear my comments here. I am very focused on our students that are here. I am not obsessing about the students that are attending in Kyrene or Tempe Union. But nonetheless, we need to improve our academic programs so that we are the school of choice for moms and dads when they send their sons and daughters to school in Maricopa. And we need to improve our middle schools. I think we're doing the right things to improve our middle schools. I think we're headed in the right direction. I think this could accelerate the process. And that's the reason why I'm most interested in closing a middle school. I think there's some other practical implications or problems I should say some practical reasons for closing a middle school. We could just have one district or one service area, just like we have one service area for the high school, right? And so that's going to be pretty easy to draw that boundary, right? We'll have one. If we closed an elementary school, I think that we'd have to redraw 5 other boundaries. We'd have to change the configuration around neighborhoods and schools. I don't think it's as practical. I don't think it would be as well received by parents by closing a middle school, because we then couldn't address some of those program issues at the middle school that I just talked about. So I want to make it clear also that I think that our middle school staff and principals are doing good work, and I think we're doing everything in our power to improve, as you've seen the presentations from Desert Wind the other night, a couple meetings ago. But I do think that we could make this change help our academic program over a series of 2 or 3 years. That's the reason I made the recommendation to close the middle school.
Okay, well, I still would like, for me personally, I would still like to see the information, and I think that the community deserves to see the information about the elementary schools and about the middle schools. I think that we need all the information. This is a very serious topic. It's not going to be pretty, but I think that we need all the information presented at a board meeting. I respect President Bartle. You want to move it and try to focus, but this isn't something we can just do, and it's gonna, I want to see all the information for elementary and middle school. So I need to know, what does the board want? Is that just me, or?
Just to clarify, the information you're looking at, is it just student numbers? Are you looking at student achievement? I mean, what?
The impact,
what
if we
exactly
had to
is-
close a school, what is the impact on all levels? And what is all the ramifications of an elementary school, you know, why, and we just need to go into more detail on proving that it's, the middle school is the best choice over an elementary school, because I'm still hearing a lot of conversation out in the community, one to be better over the other, and I want to see all the information. Now, that's just me. If I'm singled out, I can certainly do that on my own. We don't need to do a board meeting, but this is, what does the board want to direct staff to do? For all
Including
the
just-
schools.
Which we just got, right?
Yeah, but not in terms of what you're asking for. I don't think I need the breakdown, because based on what Dr. Chestnut has said, that the middle schools aren't doing very well as it is. So to take the 6th grade back to elementary, or put them in the elementary and focus on those goals, I'd just like to see a recommendation. But in terms of, you know, all the stats, for me, I don't think it's necessary.
Well, please
But
keep.
I'm just, a
Right.
bigger picture.
Right, but keep in mind, moving the 6th grades down to the elementary, we have some elementary schools and classes that have huge class sizes. That's not gonna help.
Well-
Those class sizes aren't gonna reduce in the elementary, so seeing those numbers and seeing how that impacts is important, and I would like to see that.
But the class size is already
So,
large.
we're getting a little off
We get-
topic here.
yeah.
All we need to decide is, do we want to direct staff to gather the information on closing a school?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Is that clear enough?
It's not, if I may interject, question. Do you guys have other ideas in terms of where the other $272,000 is gonna come from?
I wanna wait and see what the budget committee also recommends.
So.
I mean,
we'll wait
we have
till
a whole
then.
committee that's working, that's meeting and going through, and they're looking at several of these things too, but they might be, you know, they might come up with something that we don't have right now. So I think to have more information rather than less, I mean, I don't see the harm in it. If they've already worked it up, I mean, they've already worked it up, it's just getting the information to us and the public.
And from what Mr. Nielsen said earlier this evening, that it was unanimous that the Budget Committee agreed that these two things needed to happen for us to save the $1 million that we need to save.
They looked at, yes, they looked at that, but we're not done with the process yet. There's other information that we're getting, and we also are looking at some, you know, what is the total amount that we want to save and what we want to do. So there's a lot more to the budget committee than just saying, yes, we did look at it. The committee did say, okay, out of these two things, yeah, we're pretty set on maybe on recommending those two things, but we're not done yet.
And I'm not suggesting that the Budget Committee's done. They obviously have several more meetings to go and more cuts to lay out, because they want to go from, pardon me, the 1 million to hopefully $1.5 million to generate some extra teacher salary, to $2 million to have the rainy day fund replenished. I guess my concern is that we have a timing issue that we need to deal with it, and we waited until the end of March to start this process. That's going to really put us in a pickle, and there aren't too many $100,000, $300,000, $500,000 chunks of being able to save money, and we've got a couple $500,000 chunks that that our staff and our budget committee have unanimously said is the way to go. I think it's something that we ought to seriously consider.
Okay, but the point is, you need a direction from the governing board to move forward with gathering the information on closing a school.
That's clear enough? That's
Okay,
fine for me, and we
that's what
include
we need to
elementary
do.
and middle school options.
All right, and the other items are further down on the agenda, and we can discuss those as we come to those agenda items. So just to move us along so we're staying on task.
Okay?
Okay,
The other issue that I discussed with parents was the possibility of retaining grade 6 at elementary schools. And the feedback from parents was entirely positive. I did not find one parent that was opposed to this idea, and they really liked it. The impact on grade 6 enrollment, I mentioned that before. The parent feedback is that many grade 6 students will be retained because our elementary schools, our neighborhood schools are very popular with parents, and we're improving, and it's a good scenario. The impact on student achievement, it's hard to know. To be totally honest, it has to be unknown. But we do know that there's a large body of educational research that shows that transitions impact student achievement. So theoretically, our 6th graders wouldn't be transitioning, and so their student achievement should not be impacted and hopefully positively impacted. Now, we know that the research shows that when they go to 7th grade, then there will be a transition impact there. The other good news on that research is that students bounce back from 1 to 2 years up back to previous levels and then accelerate from there. But there's also a transition at grade 9. It's one reason why K-8 schools are becoming more popular nationwide, because then kids only have the one transition when they go from grade 8 to 9. So we know the transitions impact kids, but we are having a reverse transition here. So we're giving those 6th graders, I think, 1 year without that change impact, would be my prediction. Hard to know for sure. The financial impact, minimal, really. I mean, there might be the cost of moving furniture, but I know we have a bunch of furniture stored in some of the elementary schools. So, I think the reality is our maintenance crew, custodial crews, they do a lot of this kind of work in the summer anyway. If this is far enough ahead, they can plan their work, and the cost is going to be minimal, I think, to make these changes. Now, I also have to acknowledge it's a big change for staff. We would have to move 12 to 14 6th grade teachers, or teachers from middle schools who would be designated to teach 6th grade, to the 6 elementaries. That is difficult for staff to do. It's not easy, but I think they understand the need to do this. I think they're very much understanding the need that we have to fill this $1 million gap, and that sometimes you just have to do things you really they're not your first choice to satisfy a greater good, and I think that's kind of what we're up against here.
So we have physical capacity classroom-wise at the elementary schools. So by retaining the 6th grade, retaining the 5th graders to stay for 6th grade, it will be a more crowded school, but it won't have a negative impact on classroom size because that's by grade level.
Correct.
So that's safe to say.
It'll put more pressure on the cafeteria, the playgrounds, the bus drop areas, and yeah. And my hope would be that if we get some windfall funding from the state, additional funding, we can work on class size, because that is an issue, especially some certain grade levels and subjects around the district. We need to target those and fix that.
This may not be the appropriate time, so I may need to wait until we get to the agenda item for the 6th grade issue. But a little bit of history on when we moved 6th grade to middle schools to begin with. Can I do that now, or do you want me to do it? Let's do it, wait for the agenda item.
It's agendized as on the work study, so we can talk about it right now.
So the reason we as a district decided, because I was teaching here and part of that process, the reason we initially decided to put 6th grade with 7th and 8th graders is because our elementary schools were too full, and we didn't have enough new schools built yet to meet the need of the growth. So the decision was, at that point when we opened Maricopa Wells, to put 6th grade with 7th and 8th grade. And it was based on the reason we didn't have room in our elementary schools. It wasn't based on academics, it wasn't based on any data, it was just we didn't have room. So, now that we have room, it seems that it would be, advantageous for who's going to be 6th grader. I can just see a lot of advantages, but it wasn't based on any data or academic. It was based on the simple fact that we didn't have room. Now we have room. That was that little history lesson there. So.
That's all I got.
Oh, okay. Board, any other questions on this part of it? No? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. First and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. All right, on to our action items.
We're on that bus day in and day out. It makes a big difference. And to have possibly a series of people coming in and out of those positions can present some management issues as well on those buses, which already can be challenging.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Becca, this is through the rest of the fiscal year, the budget implications?
It is, yes.
Why, your last comment notwithstanding, but what other reasons exist for why we wouldn't just hire an additional part-time person now?
And we've had some challenges actually getting people to stay in those positions. Because of the 29.5 hours, originally it's been a difficult recruitment and retention for those positions. So it has been a challenge.
And I'm sensitive to that. Certainly if I could provide my employees greater pay and greater benefits and still working part-time, that would help retention. But to me, it seems like, and I'm also sensitive to the fact and granted, I don't know as much as I should about the impact a bus monitor has. But it seems like the most prudent financial decision is to hire a part-time person to compensate for the going over those 30 hours. We did hire those 5 people as part-time people, right? So that expectation was set, and not take the financial hit. At least get through this year and then reevaluate if there's some compelling reason that we need to add it to next year's budget, then so be it. But it seems to me that we ought to try to figure out a way to hire another part-time bus monitor. Thoughts?
Yes, thoughts. Is this, I think you clarified this earlier, but have these positions been written into IEPs? And if so, is there any grant funds or special education funds that would help offset the costs of if this is written into a specific IEP for a specific student? I understand that they need to be consistent, and they do get, there are some special needs that need to be addressed there, and I understand that. But can that be allocated, or are there any special ed funds that would offset that? So that's one question. And then the other question, have there been safety issues that have come up? Is that why this is just now coming up?
Let me answer the first,
Okay.
or the second question first. I believe it's just the sheer bulk of students that we're servicing has really caused the additional hours that we're looking at right now. I'll have to defer the first question, though, to Mrs. Sapelli, maybe Mr. Roush. We can obviously get that information for you if we need to, but I do not know whether there will be options and other funding sources, if that's what I'm understanding.
Yeah, I'm just, if it's written to an IEP, because I know there's
Correct.
certain things when IEPs are written that it's covered with funding.
Correct.
For that specific issue. So if there are students who are requiring specific bus monitors to help them on the bus, which I understand those needs are there, is there a funding source available from a grant or any type of state funding that would help offset that, or in transportation funds that would help offset that? So it's not just coming out of our M&O budget, since we did not budget for it. I don't know if it's time looking at, I understand we've already hired these people at full time, so it's kind of behind the cart, but if this is going to be an issue, can we look into that either maybe to offset this year and plan for next year? And that's probably something that the budget committee would want information on.
Absolutely. We can look into that, present some options. Yes, we can do that.
Okay.
One of the elements that's out of whack, given the borderline part-time hours, but having to give benefits, is that our benefits cost is 50% more than the increase in salary. And I'd like the board to consider approving this as it is today, given the fact that we're in this position and we need to fulfill that obligation. but also charge Mr. Beckett to not wait until next fiscal year to attempt to hire an additional part-time bus monitor so that we can revert those folks from full-time back to part-time.
Well,
Can you put them, I mean, once you put them at full-time, can you really put them back down to part-time?
Yes. We could change their work agreement once again for the subsequent school year, right? We don't make a commitment beyond this fiscal year.
Well, that's going to generate goodwill.
But if it's a safety issue, it needs to be addressed.
Correct.
And obviously, it's well worth it if it's going to keep our kids safe.
Yeah.
If we can just get some more information on and address that, I think that
Or some alternate
Mr.
funding
Bartle and I are
sources.
kind of asking the same thing. Are there other funds, are there other ways to do this so that we can plan accordingly? I mean,
And I didn't hear that safety was an issue. I heard that the primary reason was we wanted the kids to have a familiar face every day. And
Well,
so
some of
we have
it
to
is
define
safety.
what's a luxury and what's a necessity, I guess, but my 2 cents.
you did clarify that there was some safety concerns earlier. That's what I
Obviously,
thought.
yeah,
Okay.
these students, that many students on a bus, obviously will need supervision. And so, yes, that's the role these people play.
Right.
Yes, but we're not talking about decreasing the number of people. It's the same number of people that are serving in that capacity.
But they're servicing either
More.
additional routes or additional students.
I have a question. Are they on the bus with the children?
Mhm.
Throughout
Correct.
the whole entire bus ride?
Yes.
Just for clarification, I'm not suggesting we take those monitors off the bus. Not have
Of course.
They're not going to provide any less adult supervision if they're a part-time employee or a full-time
I
employee.
think I agree. I agree.
All right. And I do have a question on the behavior tech position.
Yeah, same question.
It sounds, I mean, we used to call them paraprofessionals. Is it just a new label? I mean, and why is the salary gone up? I mean, I know they're hard to come by, but I'm just,
Sure. Yep. President Anderson, the behavior tech actually is a paraprofessional, but they work specifically with our self-contained classrooms, often doing a little bit more involved interventions with students. So it is a more difficult and more, I would say, training-intensive position. Maybe, Mrs. Sapelli, you'd want to, does that seem like a fair assessment?
see, you get to talk to the microphone. This is the first time.
Our behavior tech positions are full-time positions because we are required by the state, by calling them that as part of our EDP program, we're required to do more intensive training with them about behavior management and those kinds of things. So it is a full-time position, and we currently have a large influx into the classroom where the behavior tech is being hired for. Did that answer your question?
It did.
Okay.
It did answer it. Thank you.
And
A little
about-
more quality. I noticed there was more education, a little bit more training, but I just,
And about the bus issue, I did run some numbers, and we've had 118 students with IEPs enroll since October 1st, and of those 118, when they came to us, 33 of them required transportation with some additional monitoring. So that wasn't something we could plan for. It was an influx of students.
and has that gone up even since January? I know sometimes kids.
I ran this today, so this was from October 1st, which is when we report our census numbers, through today. We're looking at 33 additional students requiring some type of monitoring on the buses.
Okay.
And of course, they're on different routes.
All right. Are there any other questions, clarifications on the HR schedule? No?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the personnel schedule as presented, and also ask staff to make its best effort to hire part-time bus monitors. in the-
Can we leave it, can we make that two separate? Can we
No.
just make the motion to approve the HR schedule and then direct staff to look into that? I don't think that needs to be part of the. I mean, I don't think it needs to be, we don't need to make a motion that staff needs to do part-time employment. That's up to staff to decide. Right now, we're just approving the HR schedule.
Okay, Okay, so in advance of calling for a motion on the personnel schedule, I'd like to informally ask the board to ask the superintendent and Mr. Beckett to pursue hiring part-time bus monitor.
Are you talking for future years? Because this is already done for this fiscal year, right?
And he just said that they can.
Right, what we would approve is that these folks are full-time, but just like yesterday, just like today, they're part-time, tomorrow they'll be full-time in effect. We could, if we were able to recruit and hire and train another part-time bus monitor, we could move those other 5 positions back to part-time, which would save $25,000 less whatever time is spent on the salary and benefits.
So, Mr. Beckett, I think we asked you earlier, can you bring back the information on what's the difference between hiring another part-time, or keeping these people's full-time?
It's $25,000 between now and the end of the year. I'm not asking for any additional information. I'm just suggesting that he continue to pursue hiring a part-time bus monitor. That would give us the flexibility of moving the 5 full-time back to part-time how they were originally hired. That would save the district potentially tens of thousands of dollars.
I'm sorry, I think I'm confused.
Well,
I'm sorry.
there needs to be a motion on the floor. You've made a motion, and I asked to not make it 2 separate things. That requesting staff to look at part-time employment is separate from approving the HR.
Well, you can't
And I've
motion
acquiesced
that.
to your request, and we're having that conversation
yeah,
about
but-
what, to be clear,
Right.
so Mr. Beckett and Dr. Chestnut are clear of what our
Right.
direction is.
Well, that's the direction, so we can just approve the HR schedule as is,
Correct.
Okay.
As stated.
But
The
Are we all in agreement with,
So there needs to be a motion to approve the HR schedule as presented.
okay, I will make that motion to approve the
He
HR
already did.
schedule as presented.
He already did.
Okay, But he was
Scott
also adding- okay.
motioned, it was not seconded,
Correct.
okay.
so we're still having,
the motion
we're still
fails.
having
Okay.
discussion.
If it's the board's pleasure to not instruct staff to do that, that's okay, but we should have the conversation and give them some direction one way or another.
I'm for the
Okay.
direction.
So there's a motion on the floor to approve the HR schedule with checking into hiring a part-time staff person. That is the motion. Is there a second to the motion?
I second that.
Okay, motion has been motioned and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Nay. So 3 opposed. So we need roll call. Veronica, are you a yes or no?
Yes.
I'm a no.
Yes,
I'm a no
Aye.
and a yes. So that motion carries. Approve the HR schedule with looking for a part-time bus monitor.
Okay, never mind.
Thank you.
can pursue it, doesn't mean it'll happen.
All right, 7B.
Do you get that?
Discussion and possible approval of keeping the 6th grade students at elementary school for the 12-13 school year. Dr. Chestnut?
So earlier, I outlined the issues. I don't think there's pressure to make a decision tonight. I do think that the sooner we make the decision, the better, because I think it will help parents plan for this upcoming school year. I think it'll help staff members plan. I do think it would still be timely to, as you know, I'm recommending that we make this change. And I think it would still be timely to do it 2 weeks from now. If you wanted to deliberate or ask for further information, we could do that. Or the decision could be made tonight. But as I stated, it is my recommendation that we move forward and retain 6th grade at elementary schools.
Well,
Okay, discussion.
yeah, let's discuss. As a parent and when I came to this district, we did have 6th grade it was K through 6. And I currently have 2 middle schoolers now, and I would have been okay. As a parent, I can see the advantage of keeping them down because I was kind of that way. I do have some concerns, though. I have some concerns. Right now at our middle school, for our 6th graders, we have honors programs. We don't have currently an accelerated or gifted program at the elementary schools. So those 5th graders that are currently excelling that would have been going into the honors programs now don't have that. And we don't have something put in place right now for those accelerated learners. And so that's a concern too, because the last thing you want to do is to keep them in an elementary setting and then have them get bored. You can't have the kids get bored at school. So that's a concern. The other thing too is that I know that we have the physical capacity at the elementary schools. We also know that we do have some large class sizes at some of these elementary schools. And that's not going to change. We're just going to be adding more students. And you're right, there is going to be some toll on the cafeteria and the monitors and drop-off, pickup, transportation. I guess I'd kind of like to see kind of a plan how the district's going to address some of these issues, such as our accelerated learners. Because parents, without having a gifted program, will still send those accelerated learners. Now, it won't be a great amount, not like we've had in the past of the 6th grade exodus of students, but those 5th grade students that are excelling that would be going into honors program, they'll probably still take them and put them in another school if we can't address those needs with retaining them in the elementary school.
I think Mrs. Couturier brings up some very valid points, and opportunity for staff to address those with what the pros and cons of making this decision. In addition to that, based on my conversations with Dr. Chestnut, that this, obviously he's expressed that this would be a really good idea in the context of us closing a middle school, but not so much if we don't. So I would like to see us make this decision in parallel with that decision, because I think it's a different decision whether or not we also close the middle school, and if we don't, then what does that look like? So I would make a motion to table this item.
Well, discussion, please. So, as a parent and as a teacher, and I find it very degrading that you would think that our teachers in 6th grade would not challenge the students, whether they were excelling students or special ed students. I think that there are opportunities there. If you keep them at the elementary school, they have that one-on-one teacher. They're not switching 6 classes. They're able to mature a little bit. They'll be a little bit more set up for success for 7th and 8th grade. But I think that our classroom teachers are more than competent at challenging those students. So the only reason there's honors at the middle schools is because those teachers were there and it was already offered for 7th and 8th grade. And our 6th grade students were able to do that. But when they stay at elementary schools, I think as an educator, as a parent, and in talking to a myriad of people, the potential for our 6th graders to blossom and to be a little bit more secure, staying in elementary school that 1 year and then moving to 7th and 8th grade opens up many more opportunities before they have that dive, before the hormones kick in middle school. I just think that it is a little bit more grounding, and in the research and the data that I've collected, that's what it shows. And we did it before, and it was a great program, and we have rooms in our schools to do that now.
Okay, and I'm sorry if you thought that I was degrading our teachers. I don't. I think we have some phenomenal teachers, and that's not what I meant. I just wanted to see if we had a plan in place for those accelerated learners. Right now, the honors classes, they have an honors curriculum, okay? I just want to see a plan that's put in place and the support, so the teachers have the support so that they can develop those extra curriculum so they can be challenged. Because these class sizes, they're not, some of these class sizes might be over 30 kids in a class. Mm-hmm. And so they might not be able to do sometimes of that individual instruction. So I just wanted to see a plan in place so we are addressing those needs. I have in no way saying that our teachers can't do this, none whatsoever. And the other thing, too, is that I would like to see, too, as a district, if this is the route that we decide to take as a board, how they're going to prepare these kids for that transition then. I know that we have some elementary schools that have, in the past, started the transition with the fifth graders so that they're going to a different class for a different subject. So they're starting to do some of that transition. I know that we've been really proactive about, introducing them into the middle school so that they can see the environment that they would be going into. So I'd like to see, these are some of the things that we'd like to see a plan in place on how we're going to handle this with then now our sixth grade students if we retain them into the elementary school. I think our staff is capable, but I also want to make sure that our staff would have the support and the resources necessary to continue this. So I'm just asking for a plan.
Any more discussion? We have a motion on the floor to table this item.
I'll second that motion to table.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item tabled and for more information at the next meeting. Good discussion. We appreciate it. All right, 7C. Discussion and possible approval of providing only half-day kindergarten for the 12-13 school year. So again, I know there'll be some discussion. Dr. Chestnut.
Well, as I stated earlier, my recommendation is that we discontinue all-day kindergarten, go with a half-day program, tuition-based for parents who are interested in pursuing that. That would be my recommendation, but once again, it's a decision I think it's made. The earlier we make the decision, the better, as it will help parents with planning. I think that it could wait till the next meeting. My recommendation would be to not wait any longer. A yes or no decision by the next meeting, I think, would be important. That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
As many of you may know, that I was a huge supporter of keeping free full-day kindergarten. When it's been approached to the board the last couple of years, we've taken a look at all the data. There is data that does support the advantages educationally for a full-day kindergarten. However, my decision that I made was based on the fact that we took in the advantages educationally and the possibility of the loss of students. And the sibling effect, the kindergartners that wouldn't, that we thought if we got them at kindergarten for free full day that they would stay on. We wouldn't lose their siblings because our elementary schools are really solid. We've seen our enrollment numbers decline. It hasn't supported that decision. And we have so many other students that we have to think of in this district that, for me, the data that I've looked at, the numbers that I've looked at, it makes sense to go to half-day kindergarten with tuition-based full day.
The enrollment impact is a question I have as well. But Mrs. Goutre, you may have delved into this, and I have not. But in order to, I think, really get a feel for what impact, I would push back a little bit that it didn't have a positive impact on enrollment without us having looked at the kids that were all in that grade, and did they stay or did they go, versus looking at the macro number of our student enrollment.
Just looking at the macro number.
But certainly, she brings up a good point in my opinion, and that is it's not just the enrollment of kindergarten that's relevant, but it's the impact on our whole entire district. So I would encourage Dr. Chestnut, I would love to see some additional information about some other case studies, if you will, on what has happened from an impact on total enrollment, and also on the student achievement side. I know you used Cascadia as an example, and thank you for that, but if possible, I'd like to have a sample set larger than just one district to have our eyes wide open when we make that decision and know what to expect. Two other things that I would respectfully request. One is more information on the pro forma as far as what the tuition would look like, possibly a best case, worst case, and a most likely. Make sure we are covering our basis. And then also specifically, what are the competing districts in our area and those who are bring buses to get our children, what are those districts all doing as far as all day versus half day versus tuition? I'd be curious to know that as well. So, and just one last comment on the enrollment thing. I mean, I don't know what the impact is, but we could save $480,000 on this side, and then out the back door, we're losing X dollars in enrollment if that's the case. So it's just, we need to look at the big picture, I think, and what the economics of it are.
Okay. With that being said, we can't afford it. And we have 6,000 students to look at, and this is what I'm basing my decision on, is we have to do what's best for all 6,000 students. Would I love to see all-day kindergarten? Absolutely. But I would also like to see lower class sizes and teacher pay go up. So, and I want Christmas every day. Unfortunately, that can't happen. So the decision is a serious one. And I think Dr. Chestnut has given, I don't know what other numbers you want for the cost, but it was in the work session. So
The other numbers I'm looking for, the numbers that were presented were based on exactly dividing the cost by 25 students. So if we only have, say, 15 students in that classroom, then the cost goes up significantly for us to break even. So I think that the tuition number needs to take in consideration more of a realistic approach as far as what the tuition numbers are going to be. There's a 4% chance that we have exactly 25 kids in that classroom. So we don't want to be in a position where we're charging tuition so low that we can't cover our costs, and that defeats the purpose of it in the first place.
Could it be that we could have a minimum number of enrollment? I mean, is that possible when you have a tuition base that you would have to meet a minimum number so that we would be able to cover the costs? I mean, is there a way to work up that type of a formula?
Yeah, Mr. Bartle is accurate. I mean, we basically do that same kind of planning, for example, at the high school level. We don't open a section unless we have a minimum number of students in the class. So this is pretty much standard practice for us. The information on tuition estimates was purposely just meant to be simple and a snapshot of what our minimal costs could be, direct and indirect. So I don't think it'd be any problem coming up with a spreadsheet that would just show the options and what the tuition could range, the tuition range that the board needs to consider. And the board obviously needs to set that amount and would probably want to look at that range before setting an amount. I have no problem doing that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then in your presentation, my understanding was that if there was a student that was identified as needing some extra help and had some identified needs, that possibly could be covered by the Reading First money.
If that, the rules are
kind of like
pretty...
a scholarship or help that parent pay for that full day.
That's correct.
Okay.
The rules are pretty specific, though. That student would have to fall in the bottom 25%. So if that student was, the next student up, there's going to be a line somewhere, and students that may be reading below where we would expect a 5-year-old pre-reader to read, below that level might not qualify for the free program. So it's a partial good answer, but it wouldn't include every kid.
But there would be, what about other students who may be identified as special, that had some special needs or some special, would there be funding or a scholarship or?
The rules from Move On and Reading are very specific. It has to be based on the bottom 25%. And that would include kids that may be special ed. Typically, 5-year-olds aren't qualified in special education. Right. So there can be some special education students, future potential special education students in that number. But those kids need help with their reading, so it's very appropriate. Special education students are still considered general education students. So I guess the bottom line is, if we did this, we would still be serving the kids that needed that full day program the most.
Okay.
When are those assessments given?
Well, early in the school year. I don't know the exact timing. Dr. Conley probably does.
That's sufficient for this person, but given that the parents would need to commit as if they were paying tuition and not knowing if their kid was going to test in the bottom 25%, correct? Then they would, in effect, get their money back? Or how does that work? Well,
we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We purposely haven't done a tremendous amount of planning on exactly how this would work out, but my guess would be, our goal would be to test every 5-year-old that was capable of attending kindergarten. Would we get that 100%? No, but we would try to get a large sample, and then we'd rank based on the sample of kids we had that showed up during the testing window. Anything else to add, Dr. Conley?
started looking into this, one of the problems or obstacles that we're going to have to overcome is looking at assessing, just what you stated. And when we get into kindergarten and assessment and their first experience in school and the amount of manpower that it's going to take to get every 5-year-old or qualified kindergarten, we need to have a very concrete, cohesive plan. Hence why I think it's on the agenda so early in the school year.
Okay. While we're asking for information, going to a half day, do you need the decision to go to half day before you can say, here's what the schedule will be? It's going to be 2, morning session, afternoon session. It's going to be 3 days a week. What do you need from us as a board? Do you need the decision made before you can? Because I would like to see what the plan is for those
Half days.
for the half day program, what it would look like. So do you need that? Do you need the decision before you can plan that, or can you plan that and bring it back?
Ideally, when you're in the middle of planning, it's always better to know that this is exactly where we're headed. This is what we've got to plan for. We've got to start putting resources and people in place to do that. Otherwise, you get a skeleton plan without details. However, we have done half-day kindergarten before. We have teachers that are, of course, still in our district that have that experience. Our curriculum director has had both experiences, both half-day and full-day. We have other models, of course, to go upon with current research as well. The sooner we can have that decision, the better for everyone. And really just a communication out to the parents, because we're continually getting called. How many, which schools are going to have the full day option? What do I need to do? Transportation is going to be a major planning, scheduling as well for half day. Yes.
And it's not a new animal. There's
many districts throughout the United States have done this, have continued to do this. We will make it work.
And we've done that before. And then the other comment I have is, statistically, the data that I've seen, even those kids who go to school half day, by first and second grade and third grade, they level off. So compared to even students who go to school all day. So that's just, maybe there needs to be more information, but that's the information. I mean, my kids went to school half day, and so I mean, there's pros and cons to both. But from what I've seen, that I've looked at, students seem to level off, whether they have full day or half day, by the time they're in about first to third grade. There is a maturing that takes place.
And reality is, based on Dr. Chestnut's assessment at Casa Grande, is it's not a difference of full day or half day. It's just going to be a difference of where the parents have to pay $100-something a month, because they didn't have any change in enrollment. The kids still are going to full day kindergarten.
Right. But I just want to make that point that if someone's worried, that's what I found.
And typically what you do see as well is those students that are at the poverty level that have maybe transitioned from preschool to preschool, home to home, they are coming at a disadvantage or at a rate that we know we have to do more intensive intervention for them, which is nice that K-3 Move On When Reading funding would be available for that most at-risk population. As we know, vocabulary development is critical and key right at that early age.
Okay. Well, I would like to make a motion. Is there any more discussion? I would like to make a motion to table. Oh, go ahead. No, discussion?
I just was going to say that I agree with Mrs. Anderson in that we don't have a whole lot of choices given the amount of money that's at stake here. The $480,000 is obviously a big chunk of what we need to save off the M&O budget. What I would like to see is just a little bit more confirmation that that 480 is going to be the actual number, and there's not going to be some leakage that brings that 480 down to the point where we have a real decision to make. So
Did you want to make, I was going to make a motion to table this item until next agenda.
I'll second that
It
motion.
sounds like we need more information, okay? Okay, there's a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Table. Thank you for the discussion again. I think it was very well thought out, so thank you. All right, 7D. Discussion and possible approval of the first reading of updated policy K0850, KCD, public gifts, donations to schools. Dr. Chestnut.
Current policy says that if somebody donates $1 to MUSD, we're supposed to bring that to the governing board. It's not necessarily the best use of everyone's time, and even though we appreciate every dollar, it's often very common in school districts to set a threshold, and the proposal would be to have board approval for donations of $500 or more. Others would be received, of course, in the normal way.
Right.
They just would be brought on the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the first reading of updated policy K0850, KCD, public gifts, donations to schools.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible approval of first reading of updated policy I-2050, HAMB, Family Life Education. Dr. Chestnut?
It's a current governing board policy, and this is a recommended update from Arizona School Board Association, based on changes in law in the last session, I believe.
Okay, discussion? Any motions? Well, then I motion to approve policy I-2050. First
second.
reading. And seconded by Mrs. Coutray. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible approval of first reading of policy I-2900, bilingual instruction, native language instruction. Dr. Chestnut.
Same scenario. I believe it's a two-word change to our current policy recommended by ASBA.
Discussion? Motions?
Motion to approve.
All right, motioned by Mr. Bartle, seconded by Mrs. Coutray. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion and possible approval of first reading of policy I-3300, online concurrent correspondence courses.
I wish I had a very exciting policy change to present to you tonight. I believe this is the one that changes one word, but I
It's one
print.
word.
Is it the one word one?
Yes.
Okay. Recommended by ASBA.
All right, motions? Discussion?
I do have a question. What's the criteria for the AOI? Is there a criteria for the AOI for any students that are going to be taking advantage of this particular program?
Ms. Gay, can you move your microphone closer? Because I didn't hear you, sorry. So you
I was
restate
just
that.
wondering, was there a criteria for the AOI?
Yes. So as I understand it, if we're going to offer online credit to our high school students, it has to be an approved provider by the state of Arizona. So we go through Greenways. They actually use some third-party providers who are on the approved list, and that's a requirement to grant the credit.
No, I'm talking in terms of the student.
To participate in that program? No. Maricopa Online would be open to any student who's enrolled in Maricopa High School. Any student.
So is there a motion for the agenda item as stated to approve the policy changes? Just that one word.
No, I didn't motion, but I'll motion. I'll motion to approve 3300 IHB HD online concurrent correspondent courses.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Discussion and possible approval of first reading of updated policy I-6000, special interest materials, selection and adoption. Dr. Chestnut.
Normally when ASBA puts out these recommendations, they will give you the reason why they're recommending the change. They'll say, well, it's been a court case or it's been a change in Arizona state law, something like that. I went back and looked after talking to Mr. Bartle, And I assured him that I was certain there was a reason. There was a change in law. There was some kind of a court case. There was something. I couldn't find it. The ASBA did not provide that information, so I can only guess that they think it is more clear by removing those words. But as he and I discussed, I'm not sure it really changes the policy, but it's still the recommendation from ASBA nonetheless.
I move that we approve item 7H.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First reading is approved. Item 8, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that. First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:18.